Patrick Cleary.
So I'm not a natural-born rebel. I really like rules. I love a spreadsheet, and I think that just about every problem needs a numbered list to get through. Now, being a rule follower really comes naturally to me because I'm a middle child and I'm a Virgo. So rebellion it's not happening unless somebody pushes me towards it. Now, I used to have a real deference for authority figures. If you had a title in front of your name, then I believed pretty much what you had to say to me. And I was eventually talked out of that or moved out of that by something that makes a lot of people rebellious, which is drugs. But unfortunately, not any sort of fun drugs. Like, they don't make like motorcycle movies about these drugs. So I'm old. They used to make motorcycle movies. Sorry. So, and I'll tell my age because when I turned 30 in 1998, I got my own health insurance for the first time. And because I was young and what I thought was in good health, I went with an HMO. And I don't use an HMO anymore, but they used to be sort of like one of those escape rooms. Like, all your doctors are in one place. They might cover you. They might talk about your problem. They might be there. All the clues are somewhere. You need to find them. You know? So I went for a physical checkup. That went fine. And I thought, I've got a little bit of depression, a little bit of anxiety. Maybe I should go get that checked out as well. So I picked someone from the glossy catalog, and I went in, and she said, this is just a 15-minute getting to know you appointment. And I said, oh, okay, great. So I went in, and she asked me 3 questions. She said, do you ever find yourself getting overly anxious about things? And I was like, oh, yeah. She said, do you ever spend money that you really don't have? And I said, oh, yeah, that's me. And she said, do you ever find yourself having inappropriate sexual relations with people you don't really like? And I'm like, mm-hmm. Now, this is 4 minutes into our 15-minute getting to know you conversation. And she says, you have rapid cycling bipolar 2 disorder. I'm going to write you some prescriptions. Now, remember, this is the late 90s, so talk therapy was kind of out. And this was when, talk to your doctor about X, Y, and Z. That it was happening all the time. And I think a lot of people have been really helped by medications, but I was looking for some talk therapy about being a little depressed. And what I got was 3 prescriptions. One for my mania, which I did not know I had. One for the depression, which I had mentioned in passing, and one for the anxiety. And I really want to talk about that one because that one was clonazepam. Now, if you are familiar with anti-anxiety medications, then benzos are the ones that you probably have heard about, like Valium. So they all end in Pam. So there's like temazepam and lorazepam and clonazepam. And I was on clonazepam. And my initial prescription was for 4 milligrams of clonazepam. Now, if you don't know PAMs, that doesn't sound like a lot of PAMs, but if you know PAMs, that's a lot of PAMs. So I had heavy-duty stuff to keep me down, heavy-duty stuff to try to lift me up, and then something for anxiety. So I was like being treated by Judy Garland's mother. It was like, take this one, take this one. So I went with it, and several months later, I was like, I am feeling much worse than I expected. I just was feeling terrible. And she said, well, tell me what's going on. And I said, I am still really low. I've never felt that mania, and I can't sleep. She said, well, if you can't sleep, I can always up your clonazepam. So then it was 2 during the day, 4 at night. See, some of you know this, and I love that. That's great, because that's a lot of PAMs. So this started a pattern where I was like, I don't believe that this is working, but she's a doctor, so she knows. And I'm just, what do I know about this? And every time it was like a little checklist. So how are you feeling? Still down, still depressed. Are you still anxious? Yes. Are you sleeping? No. More PAMs. Eventually, I got up to 8 milligrams of clonazepam, and she said, you know what? You can't take any more than that. And I said, yeah, I kind of agree. And she said, so are you sleeping? And I said, still not very well. And she said, okay, well, I'll add in a little bit of chloral hydrate. Some of you know Those who don't, chloral hydrate is anesthesia. You can't get it in pill form normally because it's anesthesia. So I had to go to this compounding pharmacy that it was like a back alley. Like I got these enormous plastic pills with this radioactive blue liquid, and I would take 2 of those with 6 milligrams of clonazepam, and then I had a 2 extra during the day just in case I got too happy. Now, this was in addition to a lot of other stuff, and I didn't realize that I was just blindly following doctor's orders until one day when I wound up at an Orange Line station with a security guard having his hand on my shoulder because I was going to jump. And that was my first 3-day. And you would have thought that that would have woken me up after 3 years of abject misery, but it took me 2 more years before I was back in for another 3-day where a therapist, a talk therapist named Michael, saved my life. He turned to me and he said, "If those drugs aren't working for you, Patrick, why don't you say no?" And it was honestly the very first time that I ever thought that I could say no to a doctor. And in some small way, all those PAMs, which was a lot of PAMs, taught me how to be a rebel, how to stand up for myself, and how to live. Thank you very much.